Sorry about that. This video is still rendering. Hey there, kids, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank. You are having a great day, and in today's video, we are going to be sitting back, relaxing, and having a little conversation about game design. That's right. Today's video is not about card collecting, or card news, or TCG finance, or anything like that. No, today we are asking a pretty important question. You see, if you are somebody who's looking to set out on your game design journey, maybe you have a crazy new board game idea, or you want to put out a video game on the World Wide Web, or maybe you want to make the world's hottest new card game, you're probably asking yourself, what's something I should really focus on when designing my game? And I have an answer for you. But before I give you my answer, I want to really emphasize, your Uncle Frank is not a game designer. He does not work with any game design companies, and with the exception of like some RPG stuff I did like 10 years ago, I don't really work in any way with game theory or anything like it. So keep in mind, before we continue this video, this is all just my opinion. Before any of you want to about your pitchforks and torches in the comments section. So, in your uncle's honest opinion, the most important thing that you should focus on when designing your game is playtesting. Playtesting, playtesting, playtesting. At every single step of the way, at every single iteration of your rules, at every change to every single card or unit or whatever you make, every change along the way should be playtested extensively and to the best of your ability. And not just your ability, but with as wide a net of play testers as possible from multiple different skill levels. And obviously this video is going to be more focused on the traditional gaming, card games and such aspect of game design, but you could take this advice with regard to video game design too, because I do believe that video games should be thoroughly tested, and a huge part of the AAA industry's problems is, simply put, lack of proper playtesting, because there are so many issues, so many glitches, bugs, and errors in modern AAA games that would easily have been caught if enough playtesting was done. And you guys know what I'm talking about. So, let's say that you have a brand new card game you want to put out to market, and you've just written down the core rules, and you've designed a handful of cards to work with it, and you get some of your friends together and playtest. I firmly believe that once you're at this stage of designing your game, that you should be getting as many different kinds of, as much variance in your gameplay as possible. You know, you should be switching up decks, trying different card combinations of just the cards you've designed before you make any changes. And you should be trying to include people from all skill levels, you know, someone who's never played a card game before and someone who's the best god dang Magic player you've ever experienced, right? You know, and I believe it's important that you do this because it's very easy for one person to miss something, right? I think it's very easy for even a group of people to miss something. In fact, I think it's easy for entire departments of people working professionally on a set to miss something. And just to back that claim up, I would like to point at the last 30 years of game design for Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! All three of those games have had plenty of problematic cards and mechanics slip through the cracks of design and make it to print, causing, in some cases, entire seasons of problematic metas just because, you know, while the devs thought this was going to be totally fine, in actuality, somewhere along the way there was a problem that just nobody caught. And, you know, sometimes, you know, and I do believe this with all sincerity, you know, just because you have a huge hand in designing the game and creating the cards, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to envision every possible way the game can be played. In fact, actually, as a good anecdote to this, Richard Garfield, the father of Magic the Gathering, was famously not that great at the game when he came back to it after the first few years of card printing. I believe he played against a pro player at one point and got completely destroyed just because he did not really understand how Magic was being played at the time. And that's a bit of a strange anecdote, but just to put it out there that um, having a hand in the game's design doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to envision how the average players are going to engage with it. So I do believe that when you're designing your own game for whatever, however you want to handle it, every change to the rules you make, every change to a specific card you make, every new card you craft for the game, I believe those should all be tested extensively to try and find as many angles as you can. Obviously, you're not going to find them all, but the more testing you do, and the more feedback you receive from your play testers, whether it's you or some friends or even an entire company, the more feedback you get, the easier I think it becomes to find potential issues, and the harder it becomes for those same potential issues to slip through the cracks, because more eyes on the process can really go a long way towards just spotting cracks in the system. And, and I do mean every iteration, okay? Like, let's say that you do a lot of playtesting with one card. Let's say that you're designing a combat-based card game with units that can attack each other, and the goal of the game is to destroy all of your opponent's units to declare victory, or an arbitrary amount of units, right? Let's say that you design a unit that seems a bit cheap to play, and it can attack at your opponent's units for 3 damage. And after several iterations of other cards, you find that no matter how much your other cards you're changing, this one unit doing 3 damage, it seems pretty strong. Not completely overpowered, but pretty strong, and might become problematic with potential future sets. Because you got to think of the future too. So you nerf it, take it down from 3 damage to 2, and move on with other things. And you never go back to that card, right? You never look at it again. Well, the set goes to print, and you find that nobody's playing that card. You thought at 3 damage it was just a bit too powerful, but it turns out at 2 damage it's basically unplayable for one reason or another. So that's why I think, whatever the change you make to the card, even if it's reverting a change, you should add a few extra layers of playtesting on top of it just to make sure everything's working spick and span perfect. All the pieces should fit together. And I'm not saying that you should make every card as perfect as possible. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you should make every card in the game to be as strong as it could be. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying that they should be as well designed as you can try, regardless of what their intended power level is supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, once that stuff is put out to print, especially if this is a physical card game, it's difficult to justify changing what's already out there in players' hands. Yes, I know actual errors will slip through the cracks. Cards will get printed with the wrong text from what you intended. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about cards designed as intended, getting out there and unintentionally being better or worse than you wanted them to be. And once those cards are out there, once the game is printed, and once those packs are sold, there's nothing you can really do about it. The players have them. And you just have to wait and see the fireworks, right? Of course, you can do what Yu-Gi-Oh does and issue erratas, but not a lot of people like those. I know I certainly don't. And you might be asking, how do let's say that you're a small indie team and you only have 4 people or 6 or 8, whatever. How do you get playtesters? Well, that's the point where you got to reach out to your potential community and try to find people who are willing to playtest your game. And I especially believe if you're a small indie team and you are really, really riding on the success of that initial release, I genuinely believe the smaller your team is, the more important it is that you get as much playtesting as possible with as wide a potential focus group as possible. Of anyone who might potentially try your game, you should be reaching out to these people and saying, hey, working on a game, would you like to give a few rounds of playtesting and just give us your feedback so we can try to make this thing actually good? That's what I firmly believe. So at the end of the day, my advice to potential game devs is just play it, and play it to the best of your ability. Try to find all the cracks and really just make sure everything works right. You don't want a Magic the Gathering companion situation, or Oko. Oko was a good one. Terrible example. But yeah, that's all I got for you kids today. Please like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you think I'm right, you think I'm wrong, you think I'm crazy. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.